Hey folks, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well, wherever you're at on this beautiful planet we call the Earth. Right up front, this is going to be talking about politics in the U.S. So if you're looking for barbecue videos, seeing the kids running around, these Filipinos here, this is not that. I know a lot of y'all come here to our show because you want to get away from politics and the problems going on in the good old United States of America. So you might want to just pass this video up, but I'm just going to briefly talk about what happened today in Pennsylvania, the attempt on former President Trump's life. Assassination attempt, let's call it what it was, what it is. And I sat here, I woke up this morning, and believe it or not, I get a lot of my news when the first thing I do is I'm looking at comments, right? Comment says something about Trump getting shot. Now folks, there's a lot of crazy people on the internet and leave crazy comments. At first I just kind of brushed it off and I'm like, you know what, let me check the news. Boom, there it is. So they were telling the truth. And so I sat there and loosely followed it and ran that premiere. I was going to cancel the premiere, but I said, you know what, just let me run it. Because here's the thing. I talk about this a lot. When you get to my point in life, once we retire, I'm not retired, but say you retire, you move out of the U.S., you're living as an expat somewhere, you can't affect change like you could if you stayed in the United States and ran for office. That's how you affect change. You got to fight them from within. You have to fight them through being there, through rallies, through protests, through lawsuits. You have to be in the game to actually affect the game. And what most of us do, myself included, is we just talk about shit. Now, can talking influence people to take action and vote a certain way or not vote a certain way? Well, of course, right? But for me to sit over here, living outside the United States for a long time and talk about politics, number one, I'm not there. So my opinion is not as informed as somebody's opinion who's living inside the United States, because I'm not there living in the middle of this political climate and all the problems that have went on and continue to go on in America since I left. I left America full-time in 2012, but I've lived outside the U.S. for more years than that. So I don't have that feeling that most of you have who are living in America right now. But I'm an American. I have the right to speak my opinion because that's the country where I was born. I lived the majority of my life. That's where I hold a passport from. So the things that happened today, I'm going to break it down and talk about what my opinion is based on limited information, because there's a lot of questions. How did the Secret Service let this happen? How did this guy get 150 yards from a former president of the United States with a rifle so easy? Why was people telling police officers that, hey, there's a guy with a rifle over there, and he still had enough time to get some rounds off?
So we had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farming Greenhouse here. We had a party, and we all decided, hey, you know, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up. And probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking, I'm estimating here, I have no idea, you know, but we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, you know, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. we're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots rang out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely, at least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service.
We were telling the police. We were pointing at them for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? This is not a big place.
So I'm going to talk about some of these things, and this might not be politically correct. Well, most of my opinions aren't politically correct. Hell, I've been out of America so long, I don't know what the hell I can say and what I can't say. But I want to offer some opinions tactically about how it went down, systematically, more strategically, how these things can happen, and what my opinion of the Secret Service is. So let's start out with the Secret Service. For me, the Secret Service is a highly overrated, overfunded waste of taxpayer dollar. Let me just get that out there. First of all, I don't believe that the common taxpayer should pay this much money to protect certain dignitaries of our government. We don't get afforded the same protection, so why should they take so much money and every year take all this money for one guy to travel around the world? And oh, by the way, some 20-year-old Call of Duty shithead wearing skinny jeans, I don't know what he was wearing, I just call him skinny jean wearing Call of Duty shithead, can crank off 8 rounds at a former U.S. president at 150 yards. Now think about that. How much tax money? I don't have a lot of respect for the Secret Service. Where do I base this opinion? Well, I think that they're what the old folks call educated fools. Okay, most of them they're very intelligent people. The ones that I've known through the years, that I've had to deal with through the years, they're very intelligent, but they're not street smart people. They're not real cops. Now, let's differentiate. What I call a real cop is a guy who went to the police academy, started working for a police department or a sheriff's office, put a uniform on, started out on night shift, and went to fucking battle every night of his life or her life on the streets of America. Now, that's what I consider a real cop. So if a person has been a real cop, they worked the road for a year or two and then became an investigator, or detective, or narcotics agent, and after several years then went to a federal agency, okay, well, that person still maintains their status with us real cops as being a real cop. If you graduated college and went to the federal government and a couple months later a quick academy, you're carrying a gun and a badge, a lot of us do not consider you as being a real cop. That's just the way we look at it, because you've never had to do battle for 8, 10, 12 hours a night, fighting people, chasing people through backyards, almost getting bit by a dog, having to jump a fucking canal, and you have a split-second decision of, oh, do I jump in the canal and chase this armed robbery suspect, or do I get eaten by a damn alligator? They've never had these experiences. They're cubicle warriors for the most part. For the most part, they spend 90% of their time in a cubicle, looking at a computer screen, writing reports. They're going to training. If they are a street agent, the closest thing for us, what we would consider real cops, number one, are Border Patrol. Yeah, they work for the federal government, but you know what? They're doing real cop shit down on the border, right? Those guys are going out every night, fighting real bad guys. and basically doing their best to survive and come home at night. DEA agents, that's probably the next closest thing. I'm a little bit biased, but doing undercover work is dangerous, but the majority of your time you're not doing undercover work. You're sitting in a car watching people doing surveillance. You're sitting at your cubicle. You're sitting in a wire room. It's not like the movies portray it. Okay? I know that's hard to understand, because what do these movies do to agencies like the Secret Service? We just watched 2 great movies. Olympus Has Fallen with, what's his name, Gerard Butler. Great movie. Makes this Secret Service agent to be out a one-man wrecking crew. Fucking Rambo. Great movie. But so far from reality. Same way with NCIS. The same way with many of these agencies where the guys, that's not really what they do. Okay? When really the baddest of the baddest cops, law enforcement guys in America, is that guy or gal wearing that fucking uniform that just pulled you over. Because they're by themselves, walking up to a car. Maybe it's got tinted windows in the middle of the night. They can't even see who's in there. And they're walking up alone on that back road of wherever they're at, with backup 15 minutes away, about to say, let me see your license. And let's see where it takes us. Now, we've all seen shootouts. What are they, daily now? Daily, you're going to see shootouts on YouTube or the news where some street cop stops a car, and the next thing you know, they're in a gunfight trying to survive. Okay, go to the Officer Down Memorial page. Who gets killed every year? It's cops, real cops, not federal agents, right? So with that, my opinion and the opinion of my friends who are real cops is, the system should be, if you want to be a federal agent, or if you want to go to the U.S. Secret Service, step 1, okay, either you spend 4 years in the military, or you spend 4 years as a real cop. And let's just take it back one. Even if you do 4 years in the military, now you need to do 2 years as a real cop on the mean streets of America, where you will do urban warfare on a nightly fucking basis. That's what we think. Now, if you take that progression, we have the utmost respect for you, and have many friends who have taken that progression. You go military, you come out, you go to the police department or the sheriff's office, do battle on the streets of America, and then you eventually go federal. And those are the best law enforcement agents that we have in that progression, because it's all about experience. Experience. One day of experience dealing with real bad guys is worth more than 6 months in any academy, 20 years on the fucking job riding a cubicle. It can't compete. All the training in the world cannot compete with real world experience dealing with real people and real bad guys. Okay. The federal agencies hire folks, and again, unless you're on the border down there busting heads every night dealing with cartel members, a lot of times you're sitting in a cubicle, you're sitting in a booth, you're sitting in your car. Okay, you're not going into harm's way every night like a real cop does. And I promise you, all this is going to tie together. How does it tie together is that you can train and train and train and train, but if you've never had a real person oppose you, let's just use handcuffing for example. In the academy, as a regular cop, you learn how to handcuff people, handcuffing techniques, right? The first day on the job, you're going to have to handcuff somebody. Unless you're working in Mayberry, you're probably, at least me, I think my first shift as a rookie by myself, I handcuffed 3-4 people. And it's something you do every day, so you're good at it. You're proficient at it. People buck up, people fight. You know how to deal with it. This is your job. But you take an average federal agent who has learned through so many training programs how to handcuff people, And then they go out in the real world and they never have to handcuff a real person. Only in training will they ever handcuff somebody. That's reality. And when they do handcuff somebody, it's usually in a controlled environment with a bunch of people. So they're not going to experience somebody fighting them on the side of a road at 2 in the morning. When you say, sir, put your hands behind your back, you're under arrest, and they go to fighting. They don't know how to deal with that. And when you first experience that, it's fucking shocking. It takes a while to learn how to do that job. And I think what the Secret Service is chock full of, at least back in my experience when I had to deal with these guys, they're good people, they're educated people, but they didn't come from the mean streets. They don't have law enforcement backgrounds being real cops. And all of their mentality is just steeped in training. They've trained and trained and trained and trained. But that means absolutely nothing until you are forced to do your job and go against real bad guys. No amount of training is going to trump one day of real experience. That's my opinion. And that's the problem with the Secret Service. They're more concerned with spreadsheets and planning and doing site recons, crossing their T's, dotting their I's, and while they're busy doing this, they can't see the forest for the trees. Meanwhile, 150 yards away, you don't need binoculars to see the guy. He's on the fucking roof squeezing off 8 rounds at the former president of the United States. Okay? Me and my buddy just had a conversation, and he said, man, wouldn't you stand on that podium and just look out there and say, hey, we need somebody on that fucking roof? Common sense. Any rookie street cop with no formal training on dignitary protection could tell you that. Okay, my grandmother could stand on that podium and look over and say, well, somebody with a damn rifle over there might shoot at me. Put somebody on that roof. My grandmother's no longer with us, but you get my point. But all the tax money, all the training of these individuals from the Secret Service couldn't look over there and say, you know what, it'd be perfect place for somebody to get up there with a rifle and squeeze off some rounds. I listened to one audio. I know it's still out there, folks. A lot of these facts I talk about are going to change. They always do. Initial information is skewed. Witnesses, aren't always correct in what they see, what they hear. But I listened to one video, and what it sounded like to me, I guess it's on my email over there. It sounded like to me, if I'm getting this right, there were 3 rounds initially fired by the shooter. There was a pause. There were 5 more. Then there was 1 shot that came from the sniper, and then it sounded like there was a pause, and then a second shot came from the sniper. I may be way off, okay? But that was just my quick assessment. What it sounded like to me is this guy just started squeezing off rounds and was going to continue to squeeze off rounds. Magazine change, just keep shooting until he got taken out. I saw a picture of him. I don't know if it's accurate. That was floating around. A lot of times when these images float around on the internet initially, they're photoshopped, they're not accurate. So I'm not saying that this one was accurate, but the photo I saw looked like the dude took a round through the mouth, got long hair, longer hair, looks like he's been in the basement, a little bit pale. He looks like he's been in his mother's basement playing Call of Duty, drinking his energy drinks, munching on fucking potato chips. He's just a typical skinny jean wearing Call of Duty shithead. That's my opinion. Maybe way off. Maybe the photo that I got sent was not accurate. That's who he looks like to me. And for some reason they said he's a registered Republican, but he gave $15 to some Democratic. I have no idea. And I'm getting off track here. Back to the Secret Service. Okay. Because people are going to say that this was... they allowed this to happen. Oh, they let him stay on the roof. It's a big conspiracy. I'm sure a lot more is going to come out, right? But you want to know my opinion? The initial assessment, A, That dude is nobody. He's just a typical skinny jean wearing Call of Duty shithead that got brought up on video games. You know, maybe his parents are divorced. His father couldn't discipline the kid. Same old fucking story, right? Same as these high school shooters. What do I blame it on? I blame it on removing the fathers from the home. Yeah, the fucking Call of Duty video games and bullshit contributes to the degradation of American society. The biggest problem in America is that when two people can't get along, we remove the father from the home. Now you have basically a grown man trying to be brought up by a single mother. Doesn't work. That's the big problem, right? That's what I saw in this picture. Just a Call of Duty shithead. Not a big conspiracy. This wasn't listen to all these Philippines in the background. It's so noisy. This wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. Why? If the dude fired 8 rounds like it sounded like, and he didn't hit his target center mass at least twice, 3 times, this isn't a gun person. Because if he were a gun person, then the former president would be lying there dead. A gun person would have hit that target from 150 yards. Not even a gun person, just somebody who's a little bit familiar with firearms would have hit that target. Because what these idiots don't realize is playing video games, this Call of Duty shit, is not the same as firing a real weapon. They're just spraying and praying. And what me and my buddy were talking about is, you know, okay, did he go to the range? Has he been shooting before? I think some of these assholes, their weapons aren't even sighted in. They have no idea how to sight the shit in, right? They can watch YouTube videos and I don't know, maybe they do, but really, what do they know? They know how to play Call of Duty. They can go buy a fucking gun and get the thing loaded, but they really don't know how to fire the weapon. Again, if the dude did, Trump wouldn't be with us today. So that's my opinion on him. Okay, did the Secret Service do anything intentionally to allow this to happen? Nope, they didn't. Okay. Number one, they get a certain amount of people. And supposedly they've requested other people to increase the detail. They got denied, which is possible. What's the motives behind that? I'm not going to go into that because it's all speculation. But they have a certain amount of people to cover a certain event, certain movements, what have you. Do they get help from the locals? Yeah. But you know what the big problem is when you do any type of interagency cooperation or event? Communication. It's the biggest problem. Why? Because the Secret Service operates on these radio frequencies and uses these types of radio protocols. The local PD has their own radio codes, their own frequency. The sheriff's office has a different frequency, a different set of radio codes. You have all these agencies speaking different languages, sometimes on totally different frequencies and different technologies. Communication. Okay, it's hard enough to get a sheriff's office, a police police department, and one federal agency together and come up with a plan to go kick in a door on a search warrant, because you're dealing with different teams trying to cooperate together. You know, it's not like football team versus football team. It's like 3 football teams trying to cooperate together on short notice with no training. Okay, it's difficult. So it's a broken system. And I'm going to give you a solution. I've given my solution in drunken rants before, but I'll be serious about it. I'm stone cold sober right now. Okay? They go to this event with a certain amount of people. They have to rely on the outer perimeter. Okay? Because they probably just tell the local cops, whatever, y'all get outside our perimeter and you go watch the roads, right? They're going to minimalize them. Well, for several reasons. Some valid, some not. A, they probably don't trust the local cops because they haven't been vetted. Okay, got it. You got to vet everybody. B, they roll with their own team. Got it. You want everybody in that inner perimeter on your own team so you know who the players are. Got it. Maybe some ego. Hey, we're the Secret Service. We don't need your help. Y'all go out there and watch the roads. We've seen that too. But with that limited amount of people, sort of can determine if that perimeter has to be collapsed or it can be expanded. Now think about this. They do the best they have with the amount of resources they have. You can't get blood from a turnip. So if DC authorizes 100 people for that detail, that's all they got. Your perimeter has to be like this. If they say, oh, we'll send you 200, now you can expand the perimeter like this. Okay, or you have to rely more heavily on local law enforcement. How many people did they have covering this event? That's going to come out. It's going to come out. There's hearings scheduled for Monday morning to start grilling this dude. And I think what you're going to be surprised is how low the numbers are of personnel that were covering the event. You just assume that there's all these people when it doesn't seem so. If they release the numbers of how many people, which it shouldn't be released, but with all these hearings and stuff, maybe it comes out. How many people were assigned to cover this event total? How many Secret Service guys? How many of those Secret Service people were more of SWAT type people instead of the dudes wearing suits with pistols? How many locals were there? How many local SWAT team members were there? All this at some point will come out. And you're going to be surprised by the numbers. I think so. I think we'll all be surprised how low the numbers are for a person with this much controversy surrounding him, that we only had this many people protecting him at an open rally. All right. So, moving on with the Secret Service. Unless those guys have prior military or they were prior real cops, you're dealing with college graduates with nothing but training. Take this guy from point A to point B. There's any little skirmishes or whatever, the locals handle that. They deal with the real people. What do? Dude stands up in front of the podium and starts talking, right? Now this is where I'm going to defend him. Anybody who's going to stand up in a podium like that in an open air situation that's not contained, if somebody is crafty enough, they can get around off. I don't care how tight security is. If somebody is a little bit more crafty, they can get a round or two off. They might not get 3. But if anybody is determined where there's a will, there's a way, you're going to stand out in that open podium or ride in an open car. Somebody will be crafty enough to put a round on target. So any type of security is not 100%. And so for Trump or anybody else in that position to step out on those podiums, folks, it takes a certain courage and a certain bravery. Because being in politics like that, at that level, standing out on that podium, you're a target. Just like every night when a local cop puts on a uniform and puts on that badge and steps out onto the streets of wherever they're at, they're a target. They're an absolute target because you got a uniform on saying this is who I am, and you're painting yourself as a target. Now, let's talk about one of the things that, okay, I'm kind of all over the map here, but while I'm on the subject, okay, the U.S. president travels everywhere with this huge freaking motorcade, right, which costs all this damn money. All this coordination screws up traffic everywhere. You know what that's very similar to? Iraq, Afghanistan is a convoy of MRAPs or Humvees. Military unit moving from point A to point B. There they are, right out in the open, just waiting for somebody to set off a damn command wire IED, blow somebody up, or throw an RKG-3 at them, or hit them with an RPG and kill a couple people inside. When I was in, let's just use Afghanistan. When I was in Afghanistan, the most dangerous time that I was ever in was when I had to ride in an MRAP. In Iraq, I had no choice. But in Afghanistan, There were a few times where I had to ride in an MRAP, and that's the only time I was really at risk. You know what saved me was anonymity. I rolled around in a 10-year-old Toyota 4Runner or a Toyota Corolla, dressed like a local. Nobody knew who the hell I was. Why would they target an old Toyota 4Runner or Corolla? We could go anywhere. People thought we were just a bunch of poor bumps. And so there's safety in anonymity. So if I were the president, I realize this big motorcade makes a statement. It's sort of like showing the flag when you send your most beautiful warship around the world, pull into port everywhere. You show the flag, right? You're just showing off your power. But let me go off on a tangent and tell you, if I were the president, I wouldn't ride in that motorcade. I wouldn't sit there and be a target and mess up traffic. The motorcade would be the decoy. I'd move from point A to point B in a Ford pickup truck, sitting in the back. They can bring the motorcade, but I wouldn't be in that motorcade. You can slim the motorcade down and not fuck up traffic so much, not have to have helicopters up and all this support, because by the time the motorcade left the location, I'd already be at the location, because I got there in a Ford pickup truck with a couple shooters. Anonymity. B, if I were the president, I would get rid of the Secret Service. Why? Because I would travel with U.S. military personnel. Let's just make it simple. I would put a battalion of U.S. Marines on notice that, hey, your mission is presidential protection. Everywhere I go, there will be a company that goes with me. One company on QRF, and that's the way it's going to be. Depending on the situation, you call up more. I would travel on military aircraft. I don't need Air Force One. That's just me. That's how I would travel. Now follow me here. Let's use this scenario. Okay, I don't have Secret Service. What do I have? If I'm in a motorcade, I got a platoon of Marines. The company's already on station wherever we're going to be. You put 200 Marines or 200 soldiers out on that area. They don't need a previous recon. They can recon the place looking at Google Maps on the way there. By the time they get there, they can, fan out. Once everybody takes up all the positions that they would take up if we were on patrol in Iraq or Afghanistan, okay, now you're good. This shit wouldn't happen. It's pretty simple. If it's a bigger open area, I just bring in more personnel. They're not costing the taxpayers any more money. They're on active duty. Pretty simple. I don't need all this planning. I don't need all these protocols. I don't need a bunch of guys in suits standing around me. Let's talk about the dudes in the suits standing around them. Here I am standing up on the podium, waiting to get shot. Boom, I get shot. What happens? 6 dudes jump on me, wearing bulletproof clothing. In this case, Trump said, hey, let me get my shoes on. Once I get my shoes on, then you rush me over to a car. I really need all this training and all this money and time and vehicles to have a bunch of people jump on top of me and drag me over to the car. Folks, I got a room full of Filipinos in there. I could train them to be Secret Service agents in about 5 minutes. Okay, ladies, here's the plan. I'm going to stand up here and talk to this camera. If somebody shoots me, y'all jump on me and drag me over to the track and get out of here. Got it? Yeah. But if I had a platoon or a company of U.S. Marines fanned out in that area, ain't nobody cracking around off of me. It's not going to happen. It just wouldn't happen. Not at 150 yards. They'd have to come in at a much longer range. And again, if the threat was there, you just call in the whole company or another platoon, whatever you want to do. Fan out. Hit the fucking points where you would be if you were going to try to shoot somebody. They know this is what they do. And you would think that the Secret Service knows this, but apparently they don't. And again, I'm not saying they're bad people. They're not complicit in this. They're just inexperienced. You could say incompetent. That's sort of used in a negative connotation. But if you're incompetent at doing a job, it means you don't have the skills and the abilities to do that job. So there you go. But I guarantee you, if I were rolling with my method, that dude wouldn't have got those rounds cranked off. I wouldn't have a hole in my ear. If I'm riding down the road as a U.S. president and I say, hey, stop over there at Burger King, I want to get a hamburger. Deuce and a half pulls in, platoon, bunch of Marines surround the fucking Burger King. I can go in there and eat a Whopper. I don't need any pre-planning, recon, none of that shit. I don't need to run background checks on the Burger King guy making the fries. Okay? I'm pretty much guaranteed if there's a platoon of Marines in and around the building, nobody's gonna take a shot at me. It's not gonna happen. And again, I'm not costing the taxpayers now one more penny, because these dudes are already on active duty. It just becomes their rotation. It becomes part of what they do, just like embassy duty. Around the world, Marines guard embassies. All I do is disband the Secret Service. Thank you, but y'all go look at fake bills, because the Marines are going to expand what they do. Not only do they guard embassies, now they guard the president, presidential candidates, their families, whatever. That's what I would do. Think about it. If you have a serious threat to your house, somebody's coming to shoot up you and your family, do you want a bunch of guys in suits with pistols standing outside? Or a company of U.S. Marines? I'm just saying. So, alright, so moving forward, I know I'm getting off on a tangent here. Folks, none of this shit's scripted. Now look, I watched this one dude's video when they said they kept trying to tell the cops there's a shooter up there, the guy's got a rifle, blah, blah, blah. And then right before the shots start ringing out, somebody yells, he's got a gun. He's got a gun, right? One of the videos, he got a gun. I think there was a little communication problem there. And I don't know, but I think if the people were yelling gun, like the guys sitting up on the roof, they're looking through a scope and they can't hear you 150 yards away. But if you start yelling gun and get down and point, then it comes pretty apparent that something's going on. And maybe those guys, it took them a while to figure out what the fuck was going on. They can't hear you from 150 yards. But if you're pointing, yelling, and taking cover, then people get it. So maybe there was maybe some of the bystanders could have done a better job of telegraphing what the hell was going on. Yeah, walking over telling a cop, hey, there's a guy up there in a rifle, versus yelling gun and getting down and pointing. I'm just bringing up food for thought in 10 minutes of research here. Political violence. Country I'm in right now, sitting in the Philippines. Political violence, I don't want to say it's frequent, but it's common. Somebody starts winning against you. How do you win the election? Well, you schwack them. It happens here. In a lot of countries around the world, political violence is just commonplace. It's very dangerous during elections. During election year, here in this country, they ban gun sales. I think the whole election year, if I remember right. Might be way off, but in and around elections, gun sales get banned, alcohol sales get regulated, and it's not just in this country. In America, typically in the past, we really haven't tolerated any type of political violence. Like back when I was a cop, or at least I'll say previous to 15 years ago when the U.S. really started falling apart. If you shot somebody or assaulted somebody who was running for office or in office, it was all hands on deck till they found your ass. We take that shit serious. Maybe the U.S. still does. I don't know. I don't live there anymore. But in other places of the globe, it happens. And it's not like a cardinal sin. Yeah, everybody's going to condemn it, but it's just, life goes on because it happens all the time. It's not a one-off. So I guess historically we've been very fortunate in America to have that security, that just because this mayor, the mayor's getting, going to get more votes than his challenger, that the challenger don't go schwack the mayor. Where in other parts of the globe it's common. Let's see. It was funny how initially watching this, how mainstream media was reporting it. Like CNN kept refusing to call it an assassination attempt. They were like downplaying the headlines. Possible shots fired when it's quite clear it's an assassination attempt. It's funny how you go from, I don't watch the news, I don't listen to the news. What I do is I go to multiple news sources and I read the article titles. And you can tell their agenda just by reading the titles. And so I'm just sitting there going through, refreshing the page, seeing which one is going to call it like it is and which ones are going to keep pushing their agenda. They don't want to give the guy credit. They didn't want to give the guy credit that it was, that he got shot, that it was an assassination attempt until they had to. And that's why when shit goes down in America, you don't look at American news sources. You look outside the U.S. You look at RT, Al Jazeera, which since this stuff has kicked off with Israel, that's all they do is report on that. It's very biased and one-sided at this point. They used to be pretty fair, but Al Jazeera has let me down. But RT, even the BBC, Australia News, India, you go to all these other sources and you'll learn a lot more about what's going on inside America because they don't have the same agenda and it's not censored. So anyhow, that's what I do. And it's just funny how certain outlets in America were just trying to downplay this shit as much as they could initially. Okay, what am I talking about? One thing my buddy brought up, he said, man, that roof is right there. You mean to tell me they couldn't put one freaking street cop on that roof? Are you kidding me? And we said, what about a drone? I got Chicken Bone 6 here. It's a DJI Mini, the first version. That thing can fly for 30 minutes on one battery, and it'll do almost that. It'll do like 28 minutes. I got 3 batteries. That thing could have been in the air for an hour and a half above that rally. A little, what was it, $500 drone. And it could have spotted that guy immediately coming up on that roof. Hey, this is for Chicken Bone 6. There's some kuya with a rifle on top of the fucking roof. Now, one of the things they say is that the reason the snipers couldn't see him, he was on the far side of the slope. So the roof is sloped like this. He's on the far side. They can't see him until he crests and caps some rounds, right? But a little $500 drone, my drone, could have been on station for an hour and a half. Now, he would have had to come down for, say, 2-minute intervals for me to change a battery. But Chicken Bone 6 could have spotted that dude the minute he started crawling up the side of the building, which people did. People did, and they reported it. But in the chaos and confusion of what did I talk about? Communication problems. Because somebody goes over to the police officer on the perimeter. Sir, there's a dude with a rifle. Hey, we got a guy with a rifle. Where does it go? It goes to the county dispatch center or to the local police department. Is he in direct contact with those snipers on that roof? Nope. Probably not. Go back to communication problems when it's interagency. So there was a delay. How can he get the information from that local cop way out on the lower 40 looking up at the top of that building to those snipers over there? If I had to guess, they were not in direct communication. There's too many people, too many players, 2 different teams, too many frequencies. There's a delay. If everybody's on the same team, hey, stay off the fucking radio unless there's a gun. So that radio is fucking quiet until somebody starts yelling out gun, sector, whatever. Rooftop 3, however they've labeled it. Alright, moving right along. There was questions about did they hesitate. Again, you can't shoot what you can't see. And even though people are pointing, if you're sitting up there and you don't have positive identification, I don't know what their rules of engagement are, but if you're just sitting over there looking at a roof, you don't know what to shoot at. They're 150 yards away. People are pointing up at the roof, but the snipers can't see the guy on the roof. They don't know who to shoot at. So was there a delay? Probably because they couldn't see him. And then when the guy comes up on the roof, does he have a weapon? Or has he got a camera? Okay? These things like this are legitimate reasons that people will hesitate to pull the trigger, and they should. Why? Because I got a camera here that from a distance, hanging on a sling, could easily be construed to be a weapon. It's happened many times. Many times it's been caught on video. Hell, the WikiLeaks video. If I'm reciting this properly, what was it called? Collateral Murder. When that helicopter lit up those journalists. If I'm telling the story right, didn't they mistake his camera for a weapon? So folks, it's easy to quarterback these events, but there's that human factor. Just like on the Miracle on the Hudson, when Captain Sully, they tried to hem him up and say, oh, if you would immediately turn back to the airport, you could have landed. Well, yeah, but there's that human factor. A, what's going on? B, where's the checklist? C, let's restart the engines. There's that human factor. So there is a delay because you gotta see the threat. You gotta, okay, does he have a weapon? You gotta make that decision to pull the trigger. Obviously, there's a human delay. All right, that's natural. Now, if those shooters were seasoned combat vets or real cops, they're gonna have a faster response time of pulling that trigger than people who got out of college, got hired at the Secret Service, and have never done anything but go to the range. There's going to be that delay, okay? Because of that lack of real-world experience. And you can't fault them for it, if that's the case. Again, maybe these dudes are true warriors. But if they weren't, and somebody in the future quarterbacks and says, why didn't you pull the trigger quicker? There's a lot of factors to think about. Okay. And here's the thing too. When you do so much training and there's so many rules and so much going on and spreadsheets and briefing and everything, it's so much to analyze. It becomes analysis paralysis, right? Whereas if I take my young Marines and stick them on that roof, they're not going to hesitate. They're not going to wait that long. They're not thinking that far. They're not thinking about rules of engagement. They're not thinking about lawyers. They're not thinking about use of force models and all that shit. 18-year-old looks over, sees a dude with a gun. He's fucking cranking off rounds. Now, there's good and bad to that, right? Probably if they saw me on that roof with my camera laid down in the prone position, I'd probably have some rounds coming my way. But again, I'm all over the map here. But let me just tell you a story. Okay, the training versus real world experience. There's no comparison. If I'm going to pick a team, it's going to be based off their experience. I don't give a fuck what kind of training you went through. Don't come and throw down fucking certificates. I don't care about your certificates. I'll take the guys with experience. Because experience is what tells you to walk into a situation and look around and say, oh, that fucking roof over there. Why? Because 2 years ago, over in Afghanistan, a dude shot at me from a similar distance and a similar height, the roof. Hell yeah, I'm going over there. Where a dude with no experience is just basically going off of what? The books that he read, the classes that he sat in, the PowerPoint slides he's seen in movies. Experience. So, I want to know what type of previous experience these guys had. And if they don't have previous military or law enforcement experience, real life experience, I don't fault them. I don't fault them. I fault the upper management. That's who I would fault. It's your fault for putting basically, I don't care if you've been a Secret Service for 5 years. If you've never had to go hands-on or deal with somebody, deal with a guy with a gun, you're a fucking rookie. You're a day one rookie. That's all they are. And they shouldn't be put in those positions. Now, my buddy said that there was a female on there. Looked like she didn't know how to handle a weapon. I don't know. I didn't see that. Looks like she had a hard time getting her gun out and then couldn't get it back in the holster. I didn't see that. I'm just telling you what he said. And again, it's lack of experience. Because in training, you don't have that fear factor that you have in real life. Let me give you, for example, okay, I'll tell on myself. Okay. You can train to do felony traffic stops. You can train to do traffic stops all damn day long in training. Sometimes you just train with, rubber guns. Sometimes you train with sims, where you can actually shoot at the person. They shoot back, little paint pellets. Hurts like hell if it hits you in the knuckle. Trust me. But that fear factor is not and cannot be factored into training. Because when you're on the streets, you're dealing with real bullets. And you can take a real bullet in your head and die. You can really die in real life. In training, 99.9%, you're not going to die. You're going to get off at 5 o'clock or whatever and go home. So you can't factor that fear in, right? So he was talking about it looked like a female was fumbling with her weapon because the fear factor was upon her, if that's the case. I'll tell him myself, I've been a cop for several years. Been on a SWAT team, and this is what I did every day. I worked narcotics, did some undercover work. It's my job. That's what I do. All right. I got somebody here rocking my door here. But one night, and folks, I had stopped and pulled over, plenty of chases, vehicle chases, foot chases, stolen vehicles, just like any other street cop in America. One night, it's about, I don't know, maybe it was 1 in the morning. There weren't any other cars on the streets, right? And I wasn't too far from the police station. I was like, just a few blocks. But I pull up to this light. The light changes. There's a car in front of us. A car in front of me, pull up behind it. So we're stopped at the light. The light had just changed. He stops. There's 3 individuals in the car. I pull up behind them. And at the time we had, now when I first started policing, we didn't have computers in cars, right? You couldn't run tags from inside the car. You had to do it on the radio. So you couldn't sit there all shift and just run cars that went by and play the laws of averages, right? And so, huh? Okay, I'll be out in just a minute. You couldn't play the law of averages. You'd be taking too much time on the radio. Well, guess what? Once we got computers inside the car, I can just sit on the side of the road and just run tags. I'm just looking for stolen vehicles. And what would happen is there'd be a tone that went off, tag come back, man, whatever. But if a stolen vehicle came back, like the screen turned red and it was a different tone. It was a stolen vehicle tone. It would go off like 3 times to let you know, hey fool, whatever tag you just ran, that vehicle's stolen. And so you would obviously get a dump of adrenaline anytime you hit a stolen vehicle. Well, that night, for whatever reason, now I've been a cop for several years. This ain't my first rodeo. I pull up behind that car and I'm like, fuck, let me run it, It's a quiet night. Streets are a little bit wet. Been raining that night. Nobody else out. Gas station over here. I can remember it just plain as day. Blah, blah, blah. Hit that. Hit the computer. Run the tag. What happens? Shit turns red. Fucking 3 times goes off. Stolen car sitting right in front of me. 3 bad guys inside of it. Just still sitting at the light. They're chilling, playing it cool. When And that's what they should do, right? A lot of people give themselves away. But these dudes weren't giving themselves away. They were chilling. At first, I wasn't going to run the tag. I just ran the tags. I didn't have nothing else to do. There wasn't anybody else around. They were the only game in town. I'm like, let me see what these guys are up to. Boom, stolen vehicle. When those tones went off, for some reason, this particular incident it dumped so much adrenaline into me. And you can translate and associate adrenaline with fear that I couldn't fucking talk. I mean, I lost my voice. I could not key up on the radio and start calling this out. I don't know why. It had nothing to do with being alone or wasn't nothing going on in my life. It's just, I don't know why it happened. It's just one of them things that forever remain a mystery. But I was Billy Badass one minute, the warrior, and the next minute when them tones dropped, I couldn't talk. I lost my voice. Just couldn't do it. So the light turns green. Now, I think they initially planned to go straight, but anyhow, light turns green, they cut a right. Obviously, they know I'm behind them. I cut a right, I went with them. I mean, I didn't freeze. I'm still in the game. I'm still in this fight. But I just can't transmit it and say, hey, I'm behind a stolen vehicle. I had to drive with these fools for probably about half a mile, try to get my breathing calmed down, try to get my voice back before I could key up and say, hey, rolling 29, southbound, blah, 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 3 occupants. And that's the best I could get out. And I got my location, the tag, 3 people, I got it out. And I was lucky to get that out. And then everything else worked itself out. Obviously, dispatch comes back. Hey, it's stolen. This is his location. I got people coming to me. Everything's going to be okay. By the time the cavalry got there, I got my voice back. And, took them down. It turned out to be a crack rental. I don't know if you know what a crack rental is, but crack rental is like somebody from the suburb shows up in the projects, needs some crack, so they trade the car off to some crack dealers for crack. Crack dealers ride in the car, and then when that person comes to, I'll say sober up, they never sober up, but when they come around and they end up, where's my car? They go report it stolen, and then next thing you know, we're behind a crack rental. Call that a crack rental, right? So is it stolen? Not really, but it is and it's not. That's how it would always go down. So you get them out, turn out, these dudes ain't bad guys, it's a crack rental, They still go to jail for stolen property, but I had some empathy for them. They didn't steal it. They traded it. It was a trade. It was a rental. And then the white guy from the suburbs reports it stolen, and they go down for riding in a stolen vehicle. Okay, the point is, big long story. Sometimes even experienced folks hesitate, choke, what have you. So imagine rookies and people who have never faced any type of opposition. Okay? Imagine that. And I think that's what you're dealing with a lot of these Secret Service agents. How do we mitigate that? That's what me and my buddy were talking about. If you want to be on the president's protection detail, you had to do at least 4 years in the military. You have to have some type of military background. After the military, you get out and you become a street cop and deal with real criminals on the streets of the United States of America. And once you satisfy those elements, now you can come apply to be a Secret Service agent to guard who is perceived the most important and most powerful person in the world. If you don't have military, local law enforcement, maybe some type of SWAT experience, don't apply. If you have a college degree, you're in the wrong fucking job. You're applying for the wrong fucking job if you have a college degree. This ain't for you. You're not ready for the big leagues. You're not ready to go to war because a college degree means nothing when you're going against real bad guys. There you go. So does that skewer the Secret Service? Well, yeah, it skewers them as their culture. But B, it also gives you some understanding that these failures are not intentional. It's because they're in over their heads and they got the wrong people out there. You make a guarantee? I guarantee you this, and this might be arrogant because hindsight's always 20/20. But me and my buddy, had either one of us run that detail, this shit wouldn't have happened. Because that would have been a huge, just fucking red flag for us, or any guy like us, anybody. Would have said, dude, that's 150 yards away with that slope on the backside where the guy's got some concealment. Put somebody on the roof. Okay, so let me throw a couple things out there. Yeah, it's late at night. I didn't feel like turning all the damn lights on, closing the blinds and all that. So anyhow, you can look at me through night shot. Plus, it pisses people off. I don't know why, but every time if I'll do a video sitting in here with a brownout and I turn the night shot on, it pisses people off for some reason. I don't know why. This whole camera's got that shit on there. You can see in the dark. Anyhow, I guess I didn't qualify like my personal experience, which was a very negative experience at the time, dealing with the Secret Service culture and mentality. And look, this is 20 years ago. Without giving up, I got to be general, right? So I don't give up any details. I was working at an agency. I was working at an agency, and all of a sudden, we had an influx of Secret Service people, Secret Service agents who came over to this agency I was working for, and they were injected into management and upper management positions. They basically took over the agency. What do they bring with them? They bring with them their culture, their way of doing things. And they basically took a good agency, a good thing we had going on, and fucked it up in so many ways. And again, I have to stay general, but basically, before their arrival and imposed that Secret Service culture onto us, we thought we were doing a mission, and we were more mission focused. Everybody was just worried about doing the job, never mind the little things. And when they showed up, all of a sudden the biggest priority to them was implementing a dress code policy. You're like, what the fuck? We're supposed to be working undercover here. Now we had a dress code. And so it went from focusing on the mission to arguing about what color fucking shoes you could wear. And they just proceeded to nitpick and scrutinize every policy that made the place good. And they refined it and added to it and basically made the place bad. They took away all the good things, they piled on all the bad things, and you went from focusing on your job every day, being prepared for your job, to worrying about, hey, are these shoes in accordance with the fucking dress code? Because these Secret Service assholes came in here and fucked everything up. So that's about as detailed as I can get. But when you get people who are more concerned with spreadsheets, PowerPoints, did you attend your training? Did you cross your T's, dot your I's? They're so focused on looking here. Again, they can't see the guy 150 yards away crawling on the fucking roof with a rifle. Too many policies. Too much. You get what I mean, right? Sergeant safety types. Always just following the book policy. They're more concerned with writing you up over not wearing the right shoes than if you're proficient at your job. And I gotta leave it at that. But I got no respect for them. I got no respect, I got no love lost. Because at the time, that was my job and my profession, and they came in there and basically fucked up my way of life and everybody else's way of life. And again, this took a real good thing. Had those assholes not came over and started imposing their way of doing things on us, I probably would have stayed. I would have stayed a little longer. I wouldn't have stayed till 20, 30 years, but that particular job, I would have stayed a little bit longer. But I'm the type of person that when I don't look forward to going to work in the morning, that's when I'm looking for a new job. I'll make a decision like that. Anyhow, there you go. You want to know why I personally don't have any respect or love for these guys? Because I got their culture imposed upon me. And again, this is over 20 years ago. But I'm sure in 20 years, the way the Secret Service does business hasn't gotten any better. It's only got worse. Evidenced by the fact of what happened. You know? But, you know, in my one book, I talk about pretty heavily Americans and our paperwork. Just such frustration. And you can read my book and see what I'm talking about. But we Americans have become so much more concerned with paperwork and PowerPoints than we are with accomplishing the actual mission or the actual objective. How many people were doing PowerPoints and briefings? When they should just do away with PowerPoints, put more people out on the perimeter. Okay, let me just clear one more thing up here. Okay, I don't believe anything that comes out of the United States federal government. Zero. Do I believe that elements of the United States government were complicit in the murder of John F. Kennedy? Absolutely. The same with his brother. The same with Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968. Absolutely. But those were different times back then. You could get away with a lot more things more boldly, more just out in the open. Why? Because there weren't video cameras, surveillance cameras hanging everywhere. The average person didn't have a camera in their pocket, a video camera on their phone, right? It's before cell phones, before social media, before global communications. It was a hell of a lot easier to pull shady shit back in the 60s. It's more difficult now. Why? Because there's damn cameras everywhere. You go to any type of event, everybody's recording. So, trust me, I don't believe anything that the United States government puts out there. And basically what happens, in my opinion, is if you agree with the United States government's version of events, they will call you an historian. You're a professor of history. If you disagree with any version of the United States federal government, any version of events, they just label you a conspiracy theorist. And that's how they discredit you. It's pretty easy. They can't attack the facts, so what do? They just discredit the messenger. You know, perfect example. WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. Dude leaks a whole trove full of facts, which used to be called journalism. And what's the first thing they do? Pile on the bandwagon to trump up that bullshit rape thing that had nothing to do with it. That's what they do. They discredit the messenger. So trust me, I do not believe any version, anything that comes out of the United States federal government. So there's going to be all kind of theories, and I just went to Rumble. And folks, I have a channel over on Rumble. I've been mirroring what I post on YouTube, but what I'm realizing is, and maybe I do it with this video, maybe this video doesn't go to YouTube, it just goes to Rumble. I can pretty much say what I want to say on Rumble, where I cannot, and I do not have that freedom on YouTube. It'll get censored, demonetized, the algorithm will penalize you in some way. You're not free to say what you want to say on YouTube. But it looks like, and it seems like in my limited experience on Rumble, you can say more of what you want to say. With that said, like, I browsed a couple videos, and people are already leaning the extreme conspiracy theorist, what the government's going to label them, that this was a plot, a plan. That's what the word conspire means. It means to plot, to plan. And people don't really understand it. Oh, what did he go to jail for? Oh, he got charged with conspiracy. Okay, conspiracy to do what? It's conspiracy to rob a bank, conspiracy to deal drugs, conspiracy to kill somebody. But the word conspiracy theorist is right up there with fighting for freedom. It's just some bullshit that the U.S. government uses to their advantage. So, do I think that any of those individual agents purposely did something to allow this to happen? No. At the lowest level, mostly what happens is the foot soldiers are just trying to pay their goddamn mortgage. Alright? If anything happens, it's at a much higher level. And with these days, how do you do it? Okay, well, yeah, you can withhold personnel. Shrink the security detail to the point that there's a lot less coverage and a lot greater chance that something can happen. And so if there's any sinister element, it's going to be on up the chain where there was pressure on this person to put pressure on this person to deny additional resources. And that's where the evil of this situation would lie. It doesn't lie with any of those individuals. As I've stated in the video, my problem with them is lack of experience, lack of real world experience. But they are only allowed so many people by people on up the chain. So how do you allow something like this to happen? Well, how do you allow something like this to happen? Well, you authorize them the least amount of people and put the least experienced people and hopefully create the perfect storm. Am I saying that that's what happened? No. But that's what could happen. And that's secretly, subliminally, deniable the intent of people on up the chain. Is that possible? Absolutely. They're saying that, so how many people have come out and said that this guy should be taken out? So I don't have all the answers, right? I don't have all the answers. All I like to do is invoke thought. But there is definitely a problem with the people in the agency with the lack of experience. There's a cultural problem where mission accomplishment is not 51% of the equation. Because if mission accomplishment is always 51%, then all the other bullshit, welfare of the men, policies, uniform, what fucking shoes I'm wearing, that doesn't matter if 51% is the mission, protecting the guy at all costs, which obviously is not happening. So I guess I just wanted to talk and say, look, I'm not so naive to say that there weren't elements in the upper echelon of the U.S. government purposely, intentionally limiting the resources because they were hoping something happened to the guy. Absolutely. They're that fucking sinister. But do I think anybody on the ground purposely did anything? No. Absolutely not. And in their defense, somebody probably did, or multiple people probably did say we need some people on that roof, and they didn't have enough people, or it got denied by higher ups. But what happens? It always happens that the lowest people are the ones who get fucking fried. And the commanders and the people on up the chain, the rich fucking people, they just get away with it every time. It's just fucking sad that, you know, you can take any conflict. Take Afghanistan, for example. You know, a young soldier or Marine goes there and loses his fucking any type of sensitive gear. You know, loses a fucking radio, or God forbid he loses his fucking weapon or leaves his weapon unattended. Next thing you know, this dude's getting written up, Article 15, discipline, whatever's going to go on because he lost his PEC 15 or some bullshit like that. All these people, their careers were affected by accidentally losing a piece of gear worth $1,000. But people in the Pentagon can't account for, you know, tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. And then when you leave the fucking place, you're just wasting a couple trillion, however much it adds up to, and they get away with it. When PFC so-and-so got fucking disciplined for losing $1,000 piece of equipment while he was running, trying to save his own fucking ass and his buddies. But that's what happens, right? The fucking rich assholes always get away with it. And us poor motherfuckers, they grew up on a dirt road doing the fucking real work. We always get the shaft. So what will they try to do? They try to lay the blame on the fucking lowest common denominator that doesn't have enough top cover. Anyhow, just thought I'd bring it up. Don't think that I'm not saying that there are other elements involved. But in the same sense, you don't immediately jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, they purposely let that dude shoot him. That's going too far the other direction. So give everybody the benefit of the doubt, especially at the lower level. And do I think that this guy had any assistance or help? You know, was he a Lee Harvey Oswald? Absolutely not. This is just a typical Call of Duty shithead. That's it. Just like the school shooters, just like all these other dudes who just play too many fucking video games, get bullied at school. I'm not using that as an excuse. Can't find a girlfriend, whatever their story is, their oh woe is me story. So I've played enough fucking Call of Duty that now I'm gonna go play Billy Badass and kill some people for real. Just a Call of Duty shithead. Not a conspiracy on his side of the fence. So folks, I was talking to my buddy. You know, we had this conversation about this, and then the question that he posed was, and this is the most important question, is, so what now? What happens now? What's done is done, but what happens now? That's the bigger question. You know, it was tragic that the one gentleman died protecting his family. I think he was a firefighter, right? I just read that. That was absolutely tragic, obviously. The Call of Duty shithead, got no love for him. He's a captain of his own destiny. He lived by the sword, he died by the sword. I feel for his family. But with all this left of the timeline, it's history at this point, it's the past. What now? Does this push somebody over the edge to retaliate? Because I'm sure there's a lot of pissed off people right now. If people feel strongly enough to protest like they did, and go to jail for entering the Capitol building. I'll just leave it at that. Some people call it an invasion. Some people call it a protest, depending on which side of the fence you're on. What happened? What went down that day, right? So people are obviously pissed. Will it? Cut it? does it send somebody over the edge to where they retaliate? That's the concern at this point. Where does it go from here? Because between now and November, it's just getting more tense and more intense. And like, unless that election is an absolute landslide for one side, that is absolutely clear that it's one-sided, a huge fucking win. If you get to another 50-50 split, whatever it is, what's going to happen then? Because ain't neither side going to believe the other side truly won. So that's the question. I don't have an answer for. But it's a very high probability that somebody's going to do something to retaliate. It's inevitable. I hope it doesn't happen. So, I don't know, folks. Those are my thoughts. I want to thank you for listening. Obviously, there was a lot of noise in the background today. Why? Because I got a house full of kids and a house full of Filipinas. And it's always noisy around here. If you want to move to a noisy place, move to the Philippines. If you don't like noise, probably not the place for you. So it is what it is. But thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with my kids hollering in the background and those ladies. You know, and this is being Captain Obvious, but maybe it's not. Also in my first book, I talk about how an old timer told me, hey man, don't try to change the river. Keep your mouth shut, make your money, you'll live longer. You just have to read about it in the book, because basically he was telling me, hey man, keep your mouth shut. Don't raise your hand at meetings, offer any opposing opinions. You know, just nod your head and clap, and you know, support whoever the jackass is coming up with bad ideas. Don't oppose them. Don't try to change the river, because you'll be out of here. Well, I learned the hard way that you don't try to change the river. The river's just going to fucking run you over and take you downstream, and nobody cares. I learned that the hard way. And Trump learned that the hard way. He went up there, had great ideas, thought he was being Billy Badass, and he tried to change the river. But what he didn't realize is that he severely underestimated the river. That's where he went wrong. He's a businessman, obviously. He understands that business and negotiations, it's a cutthroat game. He didn't understand how sinister the U.S. government game is. Because he's been in business his whole life. He hasn't been around government and government agencies and government employees and the corporations that tell him what to do. So even though he was doing good things up there, making changes, what he didn't realize was that the river was about to sweep his ass on downstream. That's what happened. And what the river realizes is that now Trump is educated on that. Now he knows. Learn the hard way. Don't try to change the river unless you're willing to take drastic measures. Drastic times call for drastic measures. Like Yellowstone brings to mind. You know, how did he change a river? Well, they blew the river up and made the river run in a different direction, right? That's drastic. So the river doesn't want Trump coming back up there, because now he has that knowledge that I can't just affect change in the way that you perceive how the government runs. It doesn't work. They'll get rid of you. If you truly want to affect change, you have to take much more drastic steps than he did his first 4 years. And that's what they're afraid of. Because now you're sending a guy back up there that got spanked once, got educated on the river the hard way, and now he knows how to play the game. He didn't know how to play the game the first 4 years. Just like I didn't know how to play the game. So that's what they're really worried about. Because when he comes up there, if he gets in the next 4 years, it's going to be drastic measures. And that's what they're worried about. I don't know. I just throw that in there. Don't try to change the river. And it's a big motherfucking river. Fuck, I'm out of here. I'm going back to sleep. You know what I did today? When I woke up to this bad news? I spent all day long. It's been raining. Just spent all day here with the ladies and the kids. You gotta live every day as though it were your last. And spend as much time as you can with your family and your children. Doing simple things. Cooking, barbecuing. Just playing in the floor in the living room. Because it just takes days like this to remind you that we're all living on borrowed time. Limited amount of time, no matter who you are. You can be the former president of the United States with the most protection in the world. 1 minute you're speaking, the next minute you're almost dead by centimeters. I think Richard Simmons died. Dr. Ruth died. That's not getting a whole lot of media attention, obviously, right now. But you know, you get to be my age, I'm 51 years old. All these celebrities that we grew up watching, they're dropping like flies. They have dropped like flies. Music legends dropping. I never understood it before about why old people always read the obituaries. Like, why the fuck do old people sit around and read the obituaries? How boring is that? How boring is that? They don't even know these people. I just never understood it until now that I'm at this point in life. I understand it now. I don't read the obituaries, but when it says so-and-so died, a famous person died, I'm like, it does catch my eye now. You know why? Because they're close to my age. And you're looking at their story to say, how did this dude die? Man, he's a year younger than me, now he's dead. That never occurred to me when I was young, watching the old folks pull out the obituaries of the newspaper. I mean, they might be searching for people they know, but in my opinion, and what I'm doing, is looking at their age and how they died, because they're close to my age. Now it makes sense. It's why you read the fucking obituaries. Me and my buddy talking about it now. We never talked about this shit before. Oh fuck, man, this dude's 52. God damn, he's 1 year older than us. Fucker went down while he was jogging. What the hell? Shit, man. So anyhow, today's like today. Just made me spend even more time with my kids. Just even more time.